Hey, everybody, it's the NFL Conference Championships preview with Aaron Schatz and Mike Tanier. Welcome to the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast from FTN Fantasy. It is January 25th, 2024. I am Aaron Schatz of ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. He is Mike Tanier of themessenger.com. And before we go in depth on the two conference championship games, let's hit a little bit of coaching news. I want to get Mike's take, first of all, on the Jim Harbaugh hire with the Los Angeles Chargers. Unfortunately, he doesn't fix any of their salary cap issues, but
yes.
What is your feeling about Jim Harbaugh from his first time in the NFL?
Well, I mean, the first time in the NFL was very impressive. It was 11 years ago. It leads to a Super Bowl, and it ends with a clash with the general manager. And on Threads, I basically officially announced I want to gather more information before I have a take on this because, like you said, the cap situation's a mess. And his first job is going to be all cap related. It's going to be general manager related. He's got to figure out how to get some of these older players, like whether they're going to extend their contracts, release them, etc. And so I what he did 11 years ago isn't really relevant to this. So I've said, I want to see who the GM is, like to see a little more about his staff, and then I'm going to make a decision about this hire. And I have since been set on fire multiple times in my mentions for not grabbing my pom-poms and screaming, "Hey, Harbaugh!" And
I also think we need to see who the offensive coordinator is. It still Kellen Moore, or are they going with someone new? Because Harbaugh is not a play caller.
No, he is a supervisor.
He's a CEO.
Yes, he's a CEO, which is great. So who does he bring in? Because we saw Kellen Moore crash against the rocks of the Herbert thing. We had before that it was what's his name, Peyton's assistant, who got run out.
Yeah, I think Kellen Moore. I think he more crashed against the rocks of receiver injuries and of Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston just not working out.
No, he's on the one-way ticket to Jalen Reagor, Denzel Mims land, which does happen. But that's it. I want to see this coordinator and see what the plan is. And you talked about those situations. Well, Gerald Everett's free agent. Austin Eckler is a free agent. Mike Williams is coming off injuries. Keenan Allen is 31-32, but it's a hard mile 31-32. Might need to replace everything out. I need to know who's doing all those things. And if it's a GM who comes in with a lot of his own ideas, is Harbaugh okay with that?
I guess I feel more like Harbaugh, like this team could be pretty good in 2025 and 2026.
Right.
Than I do that he's going to turn them around immediately because of all the cap issues on the offense.
Right. And there's a patience there. And then you have to see if he's going to be patient with this process, which I'm not 100% certain of.
Do you have any thoughts about Brian Callahan to the Tennessee Titans? A little bit like he was a hot candidate a couple years ago. And this is like the hot candidate finally gets the job a year or two later when his team is not in the playoffs.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right. And you could argue that it was impressive this year that they come in with Browning and they're manufacturing offense with Browning there. And it's funny because most people look at Zach Taylor and like he's one of those coaches that he can do no right for some people on the internet. The moment there's like a 2-game losing streak in Cincinnati, it's Taylor, it's a play call. Then they're in the AFC Championship game and it's fine again. But my problem is, explain to me how Callahan's an upgrade over Vrabel. That's where I land on this.
I mean, it could be that he's an offensive first thinker. So the idea is that it'll improve the offense. He could be a more analytical thinker, but I have absolutely no idea about that. But Vrabel was a great motivator and coach of men. That kind of stuff. Certainly.
Yes. Yeah. And
he got more out of that team than it should have gotten. Yeah. So I have no idea what Brian Callahan's talents are in that area.
Yeah, I worry about a guy that maybe the GM just saw and said, well, this guy isn't going to have the gravitas to challenge me as I do things, which I'm not bagging the GM either. He's got a difficult job because that's an old and expensive roster as well. It's just if that's what the thought process is, here comes somebody who can't really challenge me for the next couple of years. Not always the best choice, especially coming off Vrabel clearly clashing with a couple of executives out there.
And then finally, Vic Fangio not getting along. I like Adam Schefter's report that he wanted to be close to his family. All the other reports didn't get along with Mike McDaniel.
Right.
So the great Vic Fangio to Miami thing that was supposed to win them a Super Bowl ends up lasting 1 year.
Right.
He is now allegedly going to Philadelphia. And I'm going to say the same thing that I said a year ago, which is Vic Fangio does not have a history of immediately turning around defenses when he first gets to somewhere.
True. I was looking at the numbers.
It takes some time.
But what if it's a defense that was good and then became bleh, and then get it back to good again? That's a little different than having
and has, I mean, amazing talent on the front.
On the front.
Not necessarily, you know, Darius Slay. Darius Slay is probably now going to have the same complaints Jalen Ramsey had, which is that he won't be following number one receivers anymore.
Right.
And Bradbury really declined last year, and there's issues with secondary depth, and the linebackers are not good. But oh my God, Jalen Carter and
Davis when he's healthy, and Sweat and Reddick, and it sounds like Graham wants to come back, and you know Fletcher made grunting noises. It sound like he wants to come back. So there's talent there to work with, and there's a level of professionalism. Yeah, I've been seeing all these things. Javon Holland was mad at Fangio. I don't know what was going on there. You don't usually get that from Fangio out the door that his players were mad at him.
And Brian Knowles, Fangio has to have his linebackers. So maybe the Eagles finally pay some linebackers.
Howie already was like, because you can't have a press conference in Philly without somebody going after linebackers, Howie. And he sort of pushed it back as he always does.
Bring me the head of Levante David.
That may be all that's left of him at this point.
Thank you to Aaron F., who says that he heard me on Pardon My Take recently and is totally sold on analytics and DVOA. Well, we'll see how sold you are on the analytics and DVOA if the Kansas City Chiefs win the AFC Championship, which brings us to our conference championships preview. Let's start with the AFC and the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs, with the line currently Ravens by 3.5. Now, I'm struggling with this one a little bit because I feel like I'm going out on a limb by saying that the Ravens are awesome. And I feel like everybody else is like Mahomes overcomes everything. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, this season, even if you incorporate last week's game, which was the best offensive game that the Chiefs had all year,
right? But
it was just one game. You can't plan everything based on one game. You plan it based on the whole season. Right. The Ravens are superior in all three phases of the game.
Okay.
This year.
Yes.
And as good as Mahomes is, he can't catch the ball or run the routes. And he's not going to play left guard.
Right.
Tooney's out, and he's not going to play tackle where they have some problems.
Yes.
I don't doubt that Mahomes will be awesome. The problem is the whole offense. And the other side, that as good as the Chiefs defense has been this year, the Ravens offense has been better.
Has been better. And the Chiefs do not stop the run particularly well. And the Ravens have a diverse running game. I think if you even break it down by run offense, run defense, like if you turn it to 5 phases instead of 3.
Yeah, I think they're better in all of them. And Hitchhiker's Pie says it's similar to 2020, where people preferred the Mahomes factor before the Super Bowl, but DVOA correctly called it for Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And the Ravens are much better than that team.
Yes.
And in 2020, I questioned my own numbers, and I thought that Mahomes had something special.
Right.
Now I'm like, Mahomes does have something special, but it takes a village. It doesn't just take one guy, right? So, and the Ravens are, they could lose, but historically dominant, just ridiculously good.
And just like in the 2020 game, you're coming in with an injury on the offensive line. You got questions on, one of the tackle positions, and it could be a run for your life situation when you really look at what that Ravens pass rush and overall pass defense has done to quality opponents throughout the season.
I think a big deal here, I've written about this, is the linebackers, right? The Chiefs spammed 12 and 13 personnel to take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs had no linebackers. Right? The Chiefs play a nickel-based defense. And on top of, the Bills. The Bills play a nickel-based defense. And on top of that, their main linebackers were all injured.
Right.
The Ravens play a lot of base defense. If you go to 12 and 13, they will put base defense out there.
Roquan Smith and
their linebackers are Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. And also Kyle Hamilton is out there if they want him to cover Travis Kelce.
Yes, that's a good matchup against Kelce. I think Roquan can actually do something about that. Patrick Queen would run around in circles, although he's better than he was a year or two ago. No, it's a very, very favorable matchup for the Ravens on defense.
I put this out there on the Twitter and the threads, I believe, too. When the Chiefs go to 12 personnel, they had 4.4 yards per play against base, but 6.1 yards per play against nickel. And in 13 personnel, same split, but bigger. But, smaller sample size.
Right.
So if the Ravens play the base, and someone said to me, they don't need to play base because they have Kyle Hamilton. Well, they have Kyle Hamilton in base, or they can go with a 3 safety look and have Geno Stone out there.
Right.
With Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to have as much success with Kelce as they did last. I mean, not that Kelce isn't great. I think Kelce is still great, but it's not going to look like last week. They are going to have success, I think, with Rashee Rice, because if the Ravens have a relative weakness, it's number 1 receivers, where they were 12, and Marlon Humphrey has the calf injury, and we still don't know if he's going to play.
Right.
But everything else, I feel like, favors the Ravens. So here's interesting. Mahomes was terrible against pressure this year.
Interesting.
Now, Mahomes is usually one of the best quarterbacks against pressure. I do not think that Mahomes suddenly lost his ability to play against pressure.
No.
I think what you're seeing is Mahomes' receivers not being on the same page with him as far as running the scramble drill, and Kelce not being as good at getting open on the scramble drill, and guys dropping passes. And my guess is that if you went back and looked at the pressure, you'd see a lot of drop passes and stuff. And I doubt that Mahomes has forgotten how to play against pressure, but the offense as a whole for Kansas City really struggled against pressure this year.
Yeah, I can see that because he's looking downfield. And even if it's not a drop pass, he's looking downfield and saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit this to this guy. And so he tosses it to Kelce, or it keeps running or something like that.
Or he throws it out of bounds.
Whereas in years past, like, Juju Smith-Schuster, I trust him enough to get this ball, or something to that effect.
Yeah. The Ravens, I looked, they were 8th in DVOA on short passes, but first against deep. Now, Mahomes throws a lot of short this year. They had a low average depth of target. But if you look between 0 and 9 yard passes, the Chiefs were, I believe, 3rd in yak, and the Ravens were 1st in the lowest yak allowed on passes in that distance.
That's remarkable. Now, you went from 0 to 9. I have the numbers of opposing quarterbacks, 10-plus air yards against the Ravens. Raw numbers. So here we go. Here's the best numbers. Brock Purdy, 10-plus air yards, 10 of 14, 227 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 interceptions. Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
All right, now here we go. Matthew Stafford, second best, 7 of 16, 185, 0 and 0. Stafford had a good game against this.
Yes, definitely.
Trevor Lawrence, 5 of 17, 153 yards, 1 bomb pretty much. Tua, 6 of 13, 110. Tua had a bad game even with Tyreek Hill out there. Justin Herbert, 4 of 11, 79. CJ Stroud in the playoffs, 3 of 7, 76. Jared Goff, 2 of 10, 43 yards. These are, I'm not going to do like Kenny Pickett, or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. These are quality quarterbacks, and these are not like deep passes. It's 10-plus yards downfield. They've been consistently shut down by the Ravens defense.
Yeah, the Ravens defense is just really good. Arthur Millette is the cornerback to target. He is the one Ravens cornerback with a positive coverage DVOA this year.
Okay.
But if Humphrey is healthy, Millette will hardly play.
Right. That's your dime guy.
Right.
That's your dime guy.
He's your guy who comes in if Humphrey is injured. The Ravens defense was about the same with and without a blitz. They don't blitz very much. Mahomes was about the same this year with and without a blitz, although historically we all know, don't blitz Mahomes.
Yes.
Don't blitz Mahomes. Don't blitz Mahomes. The Ravens are number 1 against the pass on first down, but only 19th against the run.
Interesting.
But the Chiefs were only 16th running the ball on first down. So, I mean, they can give it to Pacheco and try to stuff it up the middle, and the Chiefs have the best adjusted line yards. Their best adjusted line yards is up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even though the Ravens fans think that's the weakness of their team, Ravens fans think the weakness of their team is run defense. They were 7th. I mean, that's not a weak. I guess it's a relative weakness, but I really don't see the story of this game being Isaiah Pacheco runs all over me.
No. You're right. It's something that you sort of can do against the Ravens. And I don't recall how many games that were out of control. And the run defense is, well, it's the fourth quarter, it's 2 touchdowns, and guys are running draw plays. I don't know how much of that. I think there was some of that against both the Ravens and the 49ers this year.
Now I'll flip it around. Here's the thing, the idea. The Lamar Jackson blitz stats are up and down every year, like up, down, up, down. This year they were down.
Okay.
Right? Lamar Jackson with a blitz, 5.6 yards per play, without 7.2 yards per play. The Chiefs, without a blitz, 5.4.
Mm-hmm.
With a blitz, 4.6. Okay. DVOA numbers here are similar. So that suggests the Chiefs should blitz Lamar Jackson a lot. Okay. Houston certainly tried to blitz Lamar Jackson a lot. Mm-hmm. Spagnuolo likes to blitz. Mm-hmm. But my guess is that the Ravens will look at what happened in the first half of the Houston game and go, okay, let's prepare for that.
Yes.
And then here's an amazing stat. Here are the Ravens when it's a 4-man pass rush.
Okay.
But next gen stats listed it as pass pressure.
Okay, so
pressure this is supposed to be the hardest play, right? Because if you can get pressure with 4 guys, that's the best thing, right?
And this usually means that you're facing like the Browns or somebody who have a great front 4 to get that pressure.
70% DVOA, 8.7 net yards per pass, and that does not include scrambles.
Wow, that's really high.
That's with pass pressure, but a 4-man rush. Almost like Kansas City has to blitz.
Yeah, well, they like getting 4 men, but it's 4 unusual men. That's like
that's true. That's true. Mitchell Schwartz actually got to me and said he doesn't like when we, the stats charting companies and stats people, define a blitz solely by the number of pass rushers. He thinks we should mark any time that an off-ball linebacker or a defensive back comes, even if it's only 4 guys, that's a blitz. Because that's how offensive linemen think.
And I respect that, except that if you're doing a stat service, it has to be as objective and concrete as possible. Right. The moment I see somebody making these subjective calls on this, I'm worried that the data is not going to be what I think the data is. So 4, 5, 6 is about as good as you can get if you want to keep things, sanitized.
I'll point out that the Chiefs get to the quarterback with scheme. It's Spagnuolo. They're only 20th in ESPN's pass rush win rate, right? Like, Chris Jones is magic, but they do not have great edge rushers.
No. They scheme it up for Karlaftis, and they've got waves of guys they use. But it's a lot of safeties. McDuffie blitzes a lot. I forget which of the linebackers blitzes most often. Maybe it's Tranquil. I forget. I broke down scramblers against the Chiefs defense because obviously we saw Josh Allen run pretty hard on them. Yeah, and we were talking on Monday. It's like, is this going to be a problem? So I've got some raw numbers for you against the Chiefs defense by running quarterbacks. Josh Allen last week, 12 carries, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Right. That's scrambles and designed runs. Yeah.
Scrambles, designed runs, and sneaks are in this.
Right.
Easton Stick, 12 carries, 68 yards. Who cares this week? 18. Justin Fields, 11 carries for 47 yards. Much of that came in the second half when it was like 31-3 or something. Josh Allen against the Bills. Josh Allen,
regular season, I'm reading my thing wrong. 8 carries, 34 yards, 1 touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 9 carries, 32 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of them a tush push. Russell Wilson, 4 for 31. Russell Wilson, other game, 8 for 30. Browning had 32 yards against them, but I think that was like 1 or 2 just like surprise scrambles there. It's not that bad. It's not like they're getting torched by these scramblers. They contained Hurts. They contained Allen to a degree in the other game. Fields was not really a factor. The over-under for Jackson is way up at 63.5. I'm not touching that. For Russell. Yeah, that does seem a little high, even though I do think like the biggest advantage the Ravens have in this game is that the Chiefs are 27th
in
run defense. And I don't know if you saw the thing we put out from FTN charting, but the Ravens have an absurd advantage when it comes to power run concepts. The Chiefs were very bad against power run concepts. And of course, that means not just Gus Edwards, but quarterback power.
Right. You can run quarterback power. And of course, you can run options off quarterback power or run options off power with outside if they load up to stop it.
So all in all, I do feel like Mahomes has this great playoff record, and Mahomes is awesome, but Mahomes has lost in the playoffs 3 times. It is possible.
Yes.
I feel like this line does not give enough respect to the Ravens. I know we want to give a lot of respect to Mahomes, but I feel like this line doesn't give enough respect to the Ravens, and I'm fine thinking Ravens -3.5 is the pick here.
Right. It feels right to me at 3.5, but you recognize the public is going to be thinking Chiefs on this because the public is more swirling around in reputations, narratives, etc. I like the Ravens -3.5.
Yeah, I don't think the line is. I think the line should be more like 6.
Wow. Okay.
Definitely like the Ravens. That's how good the Ravens. Look at what happened when they played good teams this year. Like they just won by double digits over and over again.
You want to tease it up to 5.5, you only get +107 of the Ravens.
Yeah, to tease it up to 6, you get +115. And teasing it to 6 gives you defense if the Chiefs are down by 2 touchdowns late and do the go for 2 thing.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
Right? You don't want to anymore. You don't want to take 7-point lines anymore because now the teams are doing that. They'll end up getting the 2-point conversion and covering.
Yeah. So you can at least get a push there. It's not +115. I'm not moving the spread around for that.
All right. So we both feel like as good as Mahomes is, the Ravens are the better team. I wouldn't be shocked. If the Chiefs win, I will not be shocked.
No.
As good as the Ravens were during the regular season. If they lose to Mahomes, I will not be shocked.
But we might be shocked in the NFC game.
Yeah. So let's talk about the NFC Championship game where it's the Lions at the 49ers. 49ers currently favored by 7. I do think that it would be a little shocking, even though Brock Purdy, I think this line, is affected a little bit by the fact that Brock Purdy had a bad game in the rain last week. I don't expect him to have a bad game this week when it's not raining.
Right.
I think that there's a little bit of recency bias cooked in to this line. I think, again, the 49ers advantage over the Lions in DVOA is about the same as the Ravens advantage over the Chiefs, except there's no Jared Goff magic. There's no history where Jared Goff plays better against harder defenses or better in the play, right? Like Mahomes has this history of 3rd and long, you expect a pass, Mahomes is better than everyone else. Harder defenses, playoffs, he's better than everyone else. Goff does not have that history.
Goff's Goff. Goff is Goff.
Goff throws to the middle on 26% of passes versus an NFL average of 20% and had great numbers on those passes. But Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw say hi.
Speaking of over the middle, the leader in over the middle passing is Brock Purdy.
Yep.
The number 1 receiver in over the middle passing is, I believe, Debo. And the number 2 in yardage. And the number 2 receiver is Kittle, although I might have them reversed. I'd have to.
And we don't know if Debo is playing or not. It seems to be 50-50.
Yeah, they're being.
But someone pointed out that the numbers that they're bad without Debo are actually that they're bad without Trent Williams
and Debo.
But it's not that they're as bad when it's just no Debo. Like Trent Williams had a lot to do with the fact that the no Debo games were bad.
Right. Especially if you look, I believe it was the Bengals game where there was a lot of pass rush issues that led to some of the problems.
Detroit does have an advantage running the ball on first downs.
Yes.
And wide runs. The 49ers rank in adjusted line yards from left to right on defense goes 30, 6, 6, 2, 20. So Jahmyr Gibbs around the ends.
Around the right end for him.
Either way, left end or right end.
They love getting those tackles out in front on that. Like these little pull blocks. They're not really called pulls. I forget the name of it, where the tackle loops out and blocks on the edge. Sometimes with a tight end or receiver coming in to do, you can't call it a crack anymore, but something like that.
I don't know how much quarter splits mean. I did write earlier this year about quarter splits not meaning anything, but the 49ers did have the best defense in the league in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Interesting, since they were usually just playing as a lead. And
interesting because normally you would think you had let down with a lead in the fourth quarter or overtime, but the 49ers were great in fourth quarter and overtime.
Right.
Goff was, no kidding, 3rd in DVOA on deep passes.
Remarkable. How many deep passes, though? They do not.
The 49ers were much better this year than in past years on deep
Yes.
passes. And of course, to make the deep pass, you have to stay upright long enough to throw the deep pass. Which, Nick Bosa and Chase Young are coming after you.
Right, and you're without your guard, and Frank Ragnow is going to be out there with every type of cortisone and painkiller in him in the middle of the defense. When we talk about pass rush, the Lions led the league in pressure rate, according to Pro Football, with 28.2%. Sack rate, and this is not adjusted, this is just a raw one, 6.5, 23rd. So top in pressure, 23rd in sacks. There's two
I think it's Aiden Hutchinson coming after you constantly, and all you have to do is move away from him, and you're fine.
Yeah, here it is. Hutchinson, 115 pressures, 75 hurries. Second on the team was Alex Anzalone, linebacker, only pass rushed 91 times. Mitchell, I said pass rush, not blitz. And he had 31 and 22. So first place was 115 and 75. Second place on the team was 31 and 22. That's a team that has no one else. So, yeah.
So I feel like it's give McKivitz help.
Yes.
Roll the blocking to Hutchinson. If you have to leave in Kittle or use check to block, you do that, or Ross Dwelly or something.
Yes.
Just stay away from Hutchinson, and you're fine.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle Shanahan, don't block Hutchinson with your backup tight end, okay?
Yeah, no, you can with your backup tight end, but I wouldn't with like your halfback. Your backup tight end is probably a blocking tight end, so at least he's reasonable at that. Purdy number 1 in DVOA on short passes and number 1 in DVOA on deep passes.
Yes.
The Lions 24th versus deep, 14th versus short. They are 20th or lower against all types of receivers other than tight ends. Even when they were playing better on defense early in the year, third down pass defense was still a problem. And for the year, they are 26th against third down passes. And in weighted DVOA, including the playoffs, they are 29th against third down passes.
And going back to the pressure numbers, when they do apply pressure, opponents' passing statistics are good. Like, I'm not going to break down everybody. I'm going to give you one example here. Against the pressure by the in 2 games against Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins, when pressured, 15 of 29, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's like 9 yards per catch per attempt when you're pressured. And that's another sign of, quarterback can step up, get the ball downfield, somebody's open. Bad news for the Lions.
And then as far as the running game, Detroit was number 1 in DVOA against the run. But a big part of that was that they were 3rd in second level yards per carry and 2nd in open field yards per carry. So they allowed like 4 and 5 yard runs, but not a lot of like 9 and 10 yard runs.
Yes.
And they are most susceptible to runs up the middle. They are 17th in adjusted line yards, where the 49ers are 7th.
Yeah, their defensive tackles are not very strong. And in light of that, I pulled the stat last week, but I don't have it. I think they only allowed like 5 or 6 20-plus yard runs the entire year. And like they were like 21, 22-yard runs. A lot of them were scrambles, like Justin Fields scrambles. So, yeah, they're a team that doesn't give up the big play against the run, but is vulnerable.
So I feel like the storyline, if the Lions pull the upset, is that they run a lot outside, that they throw more outside, that Amon-Ra St. Brown runs more outside and takes advantage of Ambry Thomas, who's a little weaker.
Yeah.
And that Purdy throws a pick or 2.
Or Aiden Hutchinson destroys Purdy, and that's what we get to hear about for the year. It would have to be.
Specifically, Brian Knowles says the Lions allowed 11 runs of 15 or more yards, including
Excellent. Thank you.
Not a lot.
Yeah, that's it. The storyline has to be like the big play guys for the Lions come through on this, because I don't see any other.
Because even if Purdy falls apart, I feel like the 49ers will still score enough points to win this game. Right. It'll be like last week. It'll be like the worst case scenario for Purdy, we saw it. Last week was the worst case scenario unless the Ravens game where balls kept bouncing off dudes' hands into the hands of the defenders. But I think like a more realistic worst case scenario for Purdy is what we already saw against the Packers.
Well, balls were bouncing off hands in the Packers game too. Let's not forget that, but they were defenders' hands. So yeah, I feel comfortable that this is not going to be a referendum on Brock Purdy this week. It's going to be about the 49ers.
Iceman says Penei Sewell also has to have the game of his life holding off Bosa.
And Decker. And Ragnow has to rise up to becoming this Jason Kelsey level celebrity for what he's doing injured.
All right. So we're both like the Ravens more than the public. but we like the 49ers more than the Ravens.
Yes, that is true.
I would say that is, I'm probably have the 49ers and Ravens closer than you do, but I think that that's a true statement. We like the Ravens more than the public, but the 49ers more than the Ravens. One more question then before we finish the show. Bill Houston, any thoughts on why Bill Belichick has not found a team? Not only that, but all indications are there is only one team interviewing him, and that is the Atlanta Falcons.
He's not a good fit everywhere, and a lot of owners know this. He's not. The Panthers are not going to pursue this situation. I don't think Seattle is going to go from Pete Carroll to Bill Belichick. Explain that to me, how that would make sense. So some of these teams are just going to say, well, we're not really in this business. We're not in a place where Bill Belichick makes sense. I think the Falcons could do that. I think what's happening right now is it's a matter of blank, Belichick. Was it McKay? Is the
McKay would be the GM. Yep.
Right. And them all looking at each other saying, does this actually fit? Okay. I don't know if there's been an offer made or not, but Belichick is probably looking at McKay. McKay and Blank are probably looking at Belichick saying, is this a fit? This isn't like, it's not like he's putting Brian Callahan on a team. You know what I mean? It's not just like, well, here's the coordinator and here's how he's going to work with the GM. And, Antonio Pierce is in Vegas. And you can stick, what's his name? Telesco on top of him and say, well, Pierce, you have no experience. This guy's handling your front office. So you have all of these things. Are
you surprised that the Commanders were not interested in
Yes. I was extremely surprised. I really thought that rumor was everywhere. And I thought it was accurate. But now that they've got this 49ers general manager in there, I'm guessing he's looking for an offensive mind. He might look at Bobby Slowick. He might actually be interested in Bieniemy. I don't think he has any interest in saying, let's be in the Bill Belichick business now when I just got my seat warm as somebody who's supposed to be the executive in charge.
All right, that does it for today's show. Thank you, everybody who watched. Thank you, everybody who listened. Thank you, everybody who made comments and asked questions. We really love that you love our show. We will be back on Monday, and we will review the conference championships and set everything up for Super Bowl 58. So here we go, man. We're going to get down from 4-2, and I would love for my numbers to be proven right, but I mean, a Detroit upset would be a lot of fun too.
That'd be fun. That would be fun.
It's not likely, but it would be a lot of fun.
It's not like if the Lions upset, people turn to you, DVOA was wrong. Like, we're all wrong. Everything is wrong.
Everything would be wrong if the Lions upset.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, that does it for Mike Tanier, themessenger.com. I'm Aaron Schatz, ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the conference championships, and we will talk to you all Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So long.